while he proceeded to push every button the driver had. "Hey, you look kinda like a girl in that dress, guy, don't get me wrong, it's real pretty. And why don't you shave? What are you hiding under that fuzz?" While I cringed, he went from bad to even worse. "Hey," he said to one of the women, "is this guy your boyfriend?" "Tell me," he said to the other man in the front seat, "do you ever do it, or do you save it up like I read in the National Enquirer?" That about did it. By the time Socrates counted out that change with agonizing slowness, he kept losing count and starting over. I was ready to burst out laughing, and the people in the van were trembling with anger. The driver grabbed his change and drove out of the station in a very unsaintly way. As their van pulled out, Socrates yelled, "Meditation is good for you. Keep practicing." We'd no sooner returned to the office when a big Chevy pulled into the station. The clang of the business bell was followed by an impatient toot from a musical horn. I went out with Socrates to help. Behind the wheel sat a 40-year-old teenager dressed in flashy satin clothes, topped with a large feathered safari hat. He was extremely jittery, and kept tapping the steering wheel. Next to him, batting false eyelashes in the rearview mirror as she powdered her nose, sat a woman of indeterminate age. For some reason, they offended me. They looked asinine. I wanted to say, "Why don't you at your age?" but I watched and waited. "Hey man, you got a cigarette machine here?" the hyperactive driver said. Socrates stopped what he had been doing, and with a warm smile said, "No sir, but there's an all-night market down the road." Then he returned to checking the oil, giving it his full attention. He returned the change, as if he was serving tea to the emperor. After the car sped away, we remained at the pump, smelling the night air. You treated these people so courteously, but were positively obnoxious to our blue-robe seekers, who were obviously on a higher evolutionary level. What's the story? For once, he gave me a simple, direct answer. The only levels that should concern you are mine, and yours, he said with a grin. These people needed kindness. The spiritual seekers needed something else to reflect upon. What do I blurted. More practice, he answered quickly. Your week-long meditation practice alone didn't help you stay calm when I ran at you with the sword, nor did it help our blue-robed friends when I poked a little fun at them. Let me put it this way, a fort roll is not the whole of gymnastics. A meditation technique is not the whole of the warrior's way. If you fail to understand the complete picture, you might be deluded, practicing only forward rolls, or only meditation your whole life, thus reaping only fragmented benefits of training. What you need to stay on the right track then, is a special mat that covers the entire terrain you will explore. Then you'll realize the uses and limits of meditation. And I ask you, where can you get a good map? At a service station, of course. Well then, sir, step into the office and I'll give you just the map you need. We entered laughing through the garage door. I plopped onto the couch. Socrates settled without a sound between the massive armrests of his plush chair. He stared at me for a full minute. I said nervously under my breath. Something's up. The problem is, he sighed at last, that I can't describe the terrain for you, at least not in so many words. He rose and walked towards me with that shine in his eye that told me to pack my suitcases. I was going on a trip. For an instant, from a vantage point somewhere in space, I felt myself expanding at the speed of light, ballooning, exploding to the outermost limits of existence until I was the universe. Nothing separate remained. I had become everything. I was consciousness, recognizing itself. I was the pure light that physicists equate with all matter, and poets define as love. I was one, and I was all, outshining all the worlds. In that moment, the eternal, the unknowable had been revealed to me as an indescribable certainty. In a flash, I was back in my mortal form, floating among the stars. Saw a prism shaped like a human heart, which dwarfed every galaxy. It diffracted the light of consciousness into an explosion of radiant colors, sparkling splinters of every rainbow hue, spreading throughout the cosmos. My own body became a radiant prism, throwing splinters of multicolored light everywhere. And it came to me that the highest purpose of the human body is to become a clear channel for this light, so that its brightness can dissolve all obstructions, all knots, all resistance. I felt the light diffracted across the systems of my own body. Then I knew that awareness is how the human being experiences the light of consciousness. I learned the meaning of attention. It is the intentional channeling of awareness. I felt my body again, as a hollow vessel. I looked at my legs. They filled with warm, radiant light, disappearing into brightness. I looked at my arms, with the same result. I focused attention on every part of the body, until I became holy light once again. Finally, I realized the process of real meditation to expand awareness, to direct attention, to ultimately surrender to the light of consciousness itself. A light flickered in darkness. I awoke to Socrates shining a flashlight back and forth across my eyes. "Power failure," he said, baring his teeth like a Halloween pumpkin as he held the light up to his face. "Well, is it all a bit clearer now?" he asked, as if I had just learned how a light bulb worked, rather than seen the soul of the universe. I could hardly speak. "Socrates, I owe you a debt that I can never repay. I understand everything now, and I know what I must do. I don't suppose I'll be needing to see you again." I was sad that I had graduated. I would miss him. He looked at me, a startled expression on his face, then started to laugh more uproariously than I'd ever seen before. He shook all over. Tears ran down his cheeks. Finally he calmed and explained his laughter. "You haven't quite graduated yet, Junior. Your work is hardly started. Look at yourself. You are fundamentally the same as when you stumbled in here months ago. What you saw was only a vision, not a conclusive experience. It will fade into memory, but even so, it will serve as a basis for your practice. Now relax and stop acting so serious." He sat back, as mischievous and wise as ever. "You see," he said lightly, "these little journeys do save me some difficult explanations I must go through to enlighten you." Just then, the lights flashed on, and we laughed. He reached into his small refrigerator next to the water cooler and brought out some oranges, which he started to squeeze into orange juice as he continued. "If you must know, you're doing me a service too. I'm also stuck in a place in time and space, and owe a kind of debt myself. A lot of me is tied up with your progress. In order to teach you," he said, tossing the orange rinds back over his shoulder into the Worcester basket, making a perfect shot every time, "I literally had to put a part of me in you. Quite an investment, I assure you. So it's a team effort all the way." He finished the juice, and handed me a small glassful. "A toast then," said, "to a successful partnership." "Done," he smiled. "Tell me more about this debt. To whom do you owe it? Let's say that it's part of the house rules." "That's silly. That's no answer at all." "Silly it may be, but still I must abide by a particular set of rules in my business." He took out a small card. It looked normal enough, until I noticed a faint glow. In embossed letters, it said, "Warrior Incorporated. Socrates, proprietor, specializing in paradox, humor, and change. Keep safe. It may come in handy. When you need me, when you really need me, just hold the card in both hands and call! Exclamation point. I'll be there, one way or the other."